Hi kindergarten and happy Tuesday. Today I have a fancy Nancy book to read to you. It's called What's Your Fancy? And Mrs. Petersen checked this out at her local library. Today we're going to be reading about Fancy Nancy. This book is written by Krista Tucker. She is the author. We know that the author writes the words. And the title of my story is What's Your Fancy? As we go through this book, I want you to keep your ears open for the characters, the setting, and the plot. We know that the characters are who the story is about, the setting is where the story is happening, and the plot is all about what's going on in our story. Let's get started. Ooh la la! Mom made butterfly-shaped pancakes. Fancy pancakes always taste better, I say. I want fancy pancakes too, my little sister Jojo says. I want pirate pancakes. These are pirate pancakes, Dad tells her. They're shaped like gold coins for pirates' treasure. Yay, says Jojo. Fancy pirate pancakes. Pirates aren't fancy, I tell my sister. They are too, Jojo, Dad says. I like being fancy because it makes me unique. That's a fancy word for one of a kind. But I wonder, what makes everyone else feel fancy? What's your fancy? I asked my best friend Bree. Bree feels fanciest when she's collecting bugs. But I think bugs are gross. You like bugs too, Bree reminds me. A butterfly is a bug. Mooey, of course. What's your fancy? I ask Mom. Working in her garden makes Mom feel fancy. She loves planting seeds and watching them grow. What's your fancy? I ask Dad. Dad feels fancy when he's fixing antiques. That's fancy for something old. Dad makes old things new again. Now we can make new memories with old things. What's your fancy? I ask my friends Rhonda and Wanda. We love soccer, says Wanda. Most of all, we like playing together, says Rhonda. What's your fancy? I ask my friend Lionel. Being funny makes him feel fancy. Fancy and excellent, he jokes. My neighbor, Mrs. Devine, is glamorous in a zillion ways. What's your fancy? I ask Mrs. Devine. She feels fancy when she does the cha-cha. That's a fancy kind of dance. We both feel fancy anytime we're together. My dog Frenchie adores when I dress him up. I just add a few accessories and voila! Frenchie feels like the fanciest dog on the block. You know, I think nothing feels fancier than being exactly who you are. So tell me, who are the characters in our story? You might have said Fancy Nancy, Jojo, her mom and dad, her friend Bree, maybe the neighbor, Mrs. Devine, Rhonda, Wanda. There were lots of characters in our story. Now the setting is a tricky one, but I want you to try anyway. What could you say the setting or settings of our story are? You might have said Fancy Nancy's neighborhood, maybe Fancy Nancy's house and the park. There were lots of different settings in our story. What was the plot? We know that the plot was all about Fancy Nancy talking to her friends to see what makes them feel fancy. Now, kindergarten, tell me, what makes you feel fancy? Mrs. Petersen feels fancy when she's cooking dinner in the kitchen because she likes to make lots of different food. What I want you to do once you're done watching this video is I want you to go get the bag that you picked up from school. Inside, there's writing paper and then any utensils, writing utensils, so your crayons and your pencil that you had on your table at school. I want you to go ahead and I want you to take those out of the bag, and I want you to write me a story about what makes you feel fancy. This is how you spell the word fancy. 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 If you don't remember that, you can always use your invented spelling and sound it out. But that is your next assignment, is to write me a story on what makes you feel fancy. Kindergarten friends, I hope that you enjoyed this read aloud. I love and miss you very much. Thanks for listening. Bye, guys.